How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and today we're going to focus on our next winter storm that's expected to impact the Midwest and the Northeast. Let's first begin with the European model, and at this point, we're getting into the forecast time period where the forecast will definitely becoming more certain at this point, as where within that 48 to 96 hour time period where we definitely get a better indication of what's going to happen, especially since we do have a good amount of agreement between the European model as well as the GFS model. So if we were to move forward with the forecast, so we do have a trough that's located right over the Pacific Northwest at this time, and eventually due to this jet stream dip that's going to be induced by a strong northwesterly flow from this low pressure system, that's going to force the low to interact with this very warm and humid air mass right around the Midwest to allow for a significant winter storm to develop for a lot of the Midwest states as well as the Mid-Atlantic states in the future, most likely. So continuing to move forward, we see that instability increases, and we see that right around the Tuesday afternoon time frame, that's when we really should begin to see the area of snow really become large. And at this point, it's highly certain that states like Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma will experience accumulating snowfall out of this, and it'll likely happen in this sort of fashion because, like I said, we're only 48 hours away from this event. The certainty is very high at this point, almost as high as you can ask for a forecast, especially when if we were to take a look at the GFS model at the same time period. Very, very similar forecast. We clearly see very similar scenario. The rain snow line is at a very similar position. So at this point, if you're over Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska, by Tuesday morning, you should be prepared for quite a bit of snowfall where you could easily see anywhere between 5 to 8 inches of snow. But let's move back to the European model real quick, and then moving forward, that snowfall should begin to approach Missouri and Arkansas by the late Tuesday time frame. So definitely prepare for that. And the snowfall could be heavy at times over southern Missouri and northern Arkansas, so definitely be prepared for that. The snow could extend into Memphis as well. Tennessee gets involved right around the Wednesday morning, the afternoon time frame. Kentucky, even as far north as Cincinnati, you might not experience the heaviest snow bands, but you're still more likely to experience at least some sort of accumulating snowfall, so you need to watch out for that for potentially your Wednesday morning commute. And then moving forward, we see the snowfall will eventually move into the Mid-Atlantic, and this is when we should see the storm system strengthen, and this could potentially be the area where the heaviest snow bands will develop. So places like northern North Carolina and Virginia, you could experience the worst of this storm system where we could be talking about more than 8 inches of snowfall in some of these areas. And then beyond that point, that's where we do have a little bit more uncertainty with the forecast, and mainly due to the fact of whether or not this low pressure system will move northward early enough to bring that snowfall up the Interstate 95 corridor cities rather than just relegating it as a mid-Atlantic snowstorm threat. So of course, the big thing that will determine if this storm system moves further northward is the amount of ridging just to the east of this low pressure system by the time we approach Thursday, and that will be determined by the strength of this storm system as well as the position of this trough right here. And to give you guys a better idea of what I'm talking about, let's take a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly. So we see the storm system strengthens quite a bit, and in fact, in the European model, it's stronger than the GFS model, which means that it would likely lead to a stronger ridge, because the stronger this low pressure system is, the stronger not only the northerly flow will be, but the southerly flow. So that would position the jet stream in a fashion that would allow the jet stream winds to face more from a southerly direction rather than a easterly or westerly direction, which would force this low pressure system a little bit further northward. And of course, with a stronger low pressure system, there's more air that's diverging aloft in the upper levels, so that enhances the amount of ridging in the area surrounding this low pressure system, because of course all that air that rises associated with this low pressure system will have to sink somewhere, and it typically sinks in the areas that are relatively close to this low pressure system where the pressure is higher, which would lead to a higher amount of ridging, especially just to the east of this storm system, to force the storm system to impact the cities a little bit further northward. Right now, it seems like the European model isn't taking much snowfall to cities like Boston, New York City, and Philadelphia, but it's going to be a very close forecast. Let me show you guys the European model snowfall forecast to show you what I'm talking about and how a small change when it comes to the trajectory of the storm can make a big difference in terms of how much snowfall you should expect. So here's a quick look at the European model snowfall forecast for this storm system. Of course, it's bringing snowfall to a lot of the areas we'd expect. A large area of 3 to 6 inches of snowfall over southern Missouri, but we do have areas where you could receive more than 6 inches of snow. But let me focus on the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic real quick, because we see how quickly of a gap of snowfall accumulation we see right over a place like New Jersey and into southeastern Pennsylvania and into New England as well, where if we were to see the snowfall, or at least a low pressure system trajectory, shift only a little bit, only let's say 20 miles to the east, that could mean the difference between maybe receiving only an inch of snow in New York City and Philadelphia to potentially 5 to 8 inches of snowfall, which is the reason why that despite the fact that we're approaching that 4-day time period where the forecast does become a little bit more uncertain, become more certain, I should say, that you still need to stay tuned for any changes with the forecast for some of these Northeast cities, because even 4 days out, we still could see a pretty significant change when it comes to snowfall accumulation, because like I said, the trajectory of this storm system doesn't need to change a lot for these cities to experience 6 to 8 inches of snow. So you definitely want to at least stay tuned for that in New York City, Boston, and the Philadelphia area, into New Jersey, Connecticut, and Rhode Island as well, because I think that you guys still could be you still could have that possibility of a major winter storm developing, impacting you guys. However, I also must point out that the European model has been leaning a little bit more to the GFS model as of the latest runs, which would make it less likely for the snowfall to impact the Interstate 95 corridor cities of the Northeast. So I think that this is giving a better indication that most likely these cities will miss out on the brunt of the snowfall, but I wouldn't completely rule out that possibility just yet of heavy snowfall either. But I think it's more likely than not that these Interstate 95 corridor cities will miss out on the worst of the snowfall, but still stay tuned for further updates. If we were to take a look at the GFS model's forecast, if you're hoping for snowfall over places like New York City, Boston, and Philadelphia, this would be the forecast that you'd least want to see, at least compared to the European model, because GFS model is taking it even more offshore. But again, it's still relatively close to the European model, so this could indicate that the computer models are now really honing in on this forecast, as it's because if we were to seeing the GFS and the European model agree on a forecast like this, especially within that 4-day time period, could indicate that there's a higher amount of certainty with a forecast like this when it comes to this low pressure system's trajectory before it reaches the mid-Atlantic. They're pretty much completely almost identical between the two scenarios, which I believe will look like this by the time we approach the middle of this week, where by Tuesday and Wednesday we should see heavy snowfall for a lot of these areas. So you need to prepare right over Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. The forecast is very certain for you guys, and even I'll say into Virginia and North Carolina, where both computer models are taking quite a significant winter storm. The uncertainty rises by the time it takes this northward turn. We're going to need to see how early it does it to determine if these Northeast cities will experience accumulating snowfall. But let's take a look at the GFS model snowfall forecast for this storm system. So we see that it's very, like I said, very similar to the European model's forecast. It is taking a larger area of 6 to 12 inches of snowfall. So I do believe it will fall right around this range for places like Missouri, Kansas, and northern Oklahoma, and then extending into Kentucky and into Virginia as well. You should experience close to 6 inches of snowfall, and I wouldn't be surprised if closer to the coast of Virginia as well as northeastern North Carolina and the southern Delaware Peninsula, you could experience close to 10 inches of snowfall from this, so you definitely need to prepare for that potential. Washington, D.C., even if the GFS model scenario was correct, where it wouldn't take that northward turn until later, you still should get involved with some snowfall, at least right around 1 to 3 inches of snowfall. But for New York City, Philadelphia, and the Boston area, I wouldn't expect anything more than an inch as of right now, but again, it's going to be a fairly close forecast, so don't completely rule out that possibility that the snowfall could could impact you guys a little bit more than anticipated. But make sure to prepare all throughout these areas throughout the Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic. But the thing, like I said, that will determine how, if this could impact the Northeast cities is how strong this low is. The stronger the low, the stronger the ridging will be just to the east of this storm system to force this storm system further northward a little bit earlier to bring that snowfall up the Interstate 95 corridor cities. We won't get a good idea of this until I'll say maybe the Tuesday timeframe, once this low really enters the United States, and once we really see the exact position of this trough coming off the Pacific Northwest coast, because we see by the 0Z timeframe on Thursday, where isn't a lot of ridging just so west of this storm system, and we see the vorticity a little bit more spread out, so that promotes more of a westerly jet stream flow rather than a southwesterly jet stream flow the European model is forecasting, like we see right here, where the ridging's a bit stronger, so that promotes more of a jet stream dip, more of a southerly flow on the eastern side of this jet stream dip to allow this storm system to move further northward. So definitely pay very close attention to the strength of this low, as well as the strength of this low that's expected to approach the Pacific Northwest by the Wednesday timeframe to really determine if we're going to see a jet stream dip that's strong enough to bring that snowfall a little bit further northward. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching.